You're listening to the Geekly Chronicles, Series 4, Episode 6.
Thanks for listening back to the Geekly Chronicles.
This show was recorded on the 17th of June, 2016.
This version of the show isn't quite the same as the one that went out live, as we've had to edit out all of the songs.
It's nothing personal. We're just big fans of making sure artists get paid for the great things they create.
If you want to listen back to the show in its full musical glory, head over to our Mixcloud channel, where you'll find every episode of the Geekly Chronicles as it was meant to be heard.
Ooh.
That's mixcloud.com/GKLYCO.
Thanks again for listening.
Hello.
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 Hey there.
Hi.
Hello. And ordinarily, at the start of the show, this is when we would do In the Week That and talk about some of the funnier news stories of the week.
But obviously this week there's been some tragic news stories, and it would not feel right to make light of current events this week, I think.
Absolutely. We want to stand in solidarity with all of the people that have experienced hardship in this past week. And so before we get on with our usual light-hearted show, we're just going to take a moment's silence to honour those people. Okay, so what have we got on the show this week?
Well, we have got all of your usual favourite features, the Would You Fund It, the Tumble Fumble, Game of Geeks, and so on.
Also, newsy stuff. So obviously things like the European referendum, big news here in the UK.
Oh, that old thing.
Yeah, I've heard almost nothing about that.
You wouldn't even know what was going on, would you?
No.
Yeah, well.
We've also got a great guest on the show tonight. We've got Danny Stack, who is writer and director of a film called Who Killed Nelson Nutmeg, an epic, amazing film. And he's going to be on to talk to us a bit about indie films and that kind of thing.
Cool.
Coming up a bit later on in the show.
Yeah.
So it should be
Fantastic.
good fun.
It will. And speaking of independently funded thing, I'm trying to do a segue here.
You're listening to the Geekly Chronicles. It's like Game of Thrones, but without the nudity. Mostly.
Oh, I think it's time for this week's Would You Fund It?
Indeed it is. Speaking of staying or going, we will, if you haven't heard the story that this Would You Fund It is based on, we'll be talking about that in a moment. But first and foremost, the Would You Fund It this week. You know how the world over there are shows like Jeremy Kyle and Jerry Springer, that kind of.
Yeah,
you know,
didn't it, the guy from Jerry Springer, the one that threw a chair, he even had his own spin-off show, didn't he?
He did.
That was like Jerry
guy.
Springer, but meaner.
Yes.
Steve, whatever his name was.
Steve something. Steve, the guy that throws chairs.
Chair guy.
Yeah. So there are those shows that, if you're a family that's got a kind of problem that you want to hash out.
I mean, that's not fair. I come from a family that had problems, and we never went on Jeremy Kyle or Jerry Springer.
If you're a family that has a problem that you want to kind of hash out, and you want to air on television as well,
yeah,
and you want to, fling your dirty laundry at the millions of television viewers worldwide.
I dream of nothing else.
Then you can do that on those shows. But I've always thought those shows are a bit kind of sort of tacky, really, because it's just kind of people arguing at each other at least Jeremy Kyle is. I hear Jerry Springer has chair throwing, but Jeremy Kyle is a bit kind of, just a screaming match. So
Sounds
I
like
thought
my secondary school.
Just a screaming match.
No, the chair throwing.
To be fair,
What school did you go to?
It was really a very nice school, but just one incident.
a little column A, a little column B. All schools are a bit of both. But I thought for this week's Would You Fund It?
Well, it is your turn, isn't it?
Because it is my turn. That maybe we could do something different for families or groups of people that want to sort out their problems like this. And so I approached the rest of you with my idea, and we put it forward for Would You Fund It, so you, the listeners, can vote on whether or not You want my idea to be funded. No, you don't have to actually fund it.
Yeah, no
obviously.
actual money is required. This is more just a vote.
But
we promise we won't really make it.
you can vote online whether you would like to see this. And my idea is family flotilla. It's Friday night. It's 6 o'clock. It's time for this week's Family Flotilla. That's right. It's the game show where we put two warring families onto boats, float them into the middle of the Thames, and let them duke it out, just like British politicians do. And now, let's meet this week's families. Give it up for the Springers! And their opponents tonight, their neighbours, the Kyles! Families, please take to your vessel. Kyles, what's your beef with the Springers?
The problem with these Springers is that they just think they're so much better than they're all like, oh, we've been going longer and had more time on air and stuff. And could that Steve stop chucking bloody chairs into our bloody garden? It's a disgrace and they should be ashamed of themselves.
Over to the Springers.
Oh, yeah, Kyle? Well, at least we don't have to do lie detector tests. What kind of person relies on a polygraph? Only a rating-stealing, tabloid-mongering skank like you. I mean, what even qualifies you to talk about people's lives? I was a mayor, for goodness sake. What have you done?
What have I done? I've been on the telly for 11 years, raised money for Santa, and been so controversial that half of my sponsors have cancelled on me. They'll be shouting my name in 100 years.
Oh, yeah? Well, they'll still be chanting my name in 1,000.
Enough words. Let the battle commence. And what's this? Who's that in his own boat with the sound system? It's Bob Geldof! That's all for this week. Take care of yourselves and each other.
Oh, wow.
Yes. It turns out I can do a vaguely passable Oprah voice.
Yes.
But as someone is rightly pointing out in the chat room, that was not Bob Geldof.
No, that was not Bob Geldof. But if you caught up with the news on the flotilla, Bob Geldof did randomly appear on a boat with a sound system during the middle of the ridiculousness that was the flotilla on the Thames.
Yes.
Because apparently this is how we solve our arguments in Britain in the 21st century.
Apparently.
We all just battle each other in boats on the Thames.
I mean, I think it's a better method than flinging chairs at each other. I think it's got
Yes, but flinging
sea legs.
chairs. Yeah, but the I see what you did there.
Yeah.
The problem with the flotilla is that between the sound system and all of the horn honking to try and drown out the sound system, central London was basically a no-go area thanks to noise pollution that day.
This is true. There is a slight noise problem. But
At
I
least
think,
chair throwing is quieter.
if it's getting,
Depends on the number
interesting,
of chairs.
hopefully you
Yeah,
can
true,
attract
true.
an audience that passers-by will be like, oh, look, what are they fighting about?
And then you've got family flotilla.
Exactly. So if you think this idea has sea legs, oh yeah, I'm gonna use that pun for the rest of the show.
Same bad pun. Yes.
Oh yeah, that's the way we roll on the Geekly Chronicles. If you think,
Hey, don't lump us in with you there.
you are both equally as guilty as I am at bad puns. But if you think that this idea should be funded, you're welcome. I didn't do it again. Then head on over to gkly.co/fund it and vote whether or not you think this idea is seaworthy.
Oh dear.
It will only get worse.
Anna Yumi in the chat room says, is chair throwing a formalised Olympic sport yet? Olympic 2020, we're thinking here.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to look into that one.
Yeah, not a bad idea, actually.
I mean, we
As
have
opposed to an informal Olympic sport.
It's
This is true.
an informal Olympic sport, which is basically ones that take place in the car park outside the Olympic Stadium.
I mean, we have
Chugging, for example.
such sports as cheese rolling and caber tossing exist. Why not chair throwing as well?
It's true. Cheese rolling is not an Olympic sport.
It's
though.
not an Olympic sport, but it
Cheese
is a
eating
sport.
should be an Olympic sport. I mean,
I will be okay with that.
yeah, that's generally what I do when I sit and watch the Olympics. Like, I wish I was as fit as those athletes. As the
Pass
cheese
the
goes
Stilton.
down my throat.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
People out on the Thames with megaphones yelling their
cheese.
problems at each other.
Yeah, that could be an Olympic sport, actually. Flotillaring. Flotillaring. That's an Olympic sport.
So yeah, do get your votes in, and we'll be checking back later in the show.
Absolutely.
Well, I
was going to talk.
was probably going to say the same thing as you, but as we've been saying, this did actually happen.
It did actually happen.
It's a real news story.
Yeah,
It
I've got
is.
a wonderful quote here from Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage said, his flotilla is not a celebration or a party, but a full-throttled protest.
Full throttled.
Yes.
It's the Geekly Chronicles. It's like Nyan Cat, only we don't poo rainbows.
But thinking of things that words that I also like, flotilla is a word that I'm a fan of.
It is a very nice word. It's quite mellifluous.
What does that mean?
That's a very nice sounding word. That's what it means.
Mellifluous is
Mellifluous
a
word.
nice sounding word that means a nice sounding word.
Yes,
You learn so many things.
indeed. We're an educational program.
Apparently so. This is the news that this week. This week, a bunch of politicians got on boats in the Thames and battled it out.
A bunch of politicians
and
Bob
Geldof, who just
Most
decided to join the
importantly.
fray with a sound system.
Because of course.
Well, yes, if I was Bob Geldof, I'd do the same thing. In fairness, if
Why
I was
not?
me, I'd do the same thing. But I don't have a boat or a big enough speaker.
Yes.
And also, I kind of like Mondays. But
Really?
yeah. And Catherine sneezing. That's okay. That's the most you've said all show.
I know.
Hi, Catherine. Catherine is still here.
I will be
Good,
making
good.
a selection of bodily functions for the rest of the show.
Ew.
Thanks. Yeah, lovely. Great. That's.
Bodily function noises.
I appreciate your
Doesn't matter about the actual
contribution to
function.
TV this week.
People can't see your experience. those.
Stop, please.
Okay, I will stop.
I see you're
Don't let
holding
me
a
talk.
shovel. Could you drop it, please, and walk away from this hole that you seem to have randomly started digging in the studio?
Although I now need a clang sound effect for dropping my shovel.
We can get that.
Isn't that one of the aliens from The Simpsons?
That's Kang.
Oh, never mind. Anyway, yes.
Also a Klingon in Star Trek.
But that entire conversation that we just had made more sense than this flotilla that was just bizarre.
It kind of did.
But it's all in aid of the EU referendum, which is, of
Yes.
course, happening on Thursday next week. So we're less than a week away now from a very big vote. And anyone listening that is old enough to vote and is in the UK and eligible to vote, I encourage you to do so, because it is possibly the biggest vote in our generation, the most important one, I would say. We have been a member of the European Union, or whatever it's been called, for about 40 years. There was a vote in 1975 to see if we should stay in, and people voted to stay in.
I think go in.
No, it was to stay in. We
Okay.
were already a member in 1975. It's a common misconception that I read about the other day.
Nice.
Um,
Well, my highlighting of misconceptions skills is excellent.
I'm very
Indeed.
glad at least one of us around the table does the research before we start the show.
But it's a really interesting debate, because certainly, we can only give opinion here. We can give you some facts, but everything's a bit twinged and biased.
This is true.
So obviously, we're not a show that is all about politics. But it's very interesting that we're facing this choice now. Back in 1975, the country was in a really bad way. We just had the 3-day working week. Some food was still being rationed. There were shortages everywhere. There were energy shortages. Unemployment was massively high. We needed Europe in 1975. We had to stay in, otherwise we wouldn't survive. I think now people are kind of saying, well, we're doing all right. We're much better off. Unemployment's low. The pound's strong. And, that's a bit like saying, well, we thought we'd join when we needed these people, but now we're doing all right, so screw them. What happened to those European countries that supported us when we were badly off? Shouldn't we be doing the same thing with the ones that are and now badly off. But then, yeah, that's just my opinion.
Indeed. I know Yumi in the chat room. I don't have opinions, but I know Yumi in the chat room says, "I already voted. Hooray, postal voting. I'm lazy." To which I say, "Me too."
Yes,
I did.
Yeah, and it was very fascinating for me to see that actually, because we were sat there when you were postal voting, and I was looking over kind of jealously, thinking, "Wow, that's really simple."
Yes.
How easy.
I mean, I personally wasn't expecting a third surprise me option on the ballot form, but
I'm feeling lucky.
Yes. Leave, remain, who knows? But
I'd rather have a bowl of Cocoa Pops as one of the options.
Yes, but yes, it was quite fun. But also now that it's kind of the lead up, because it is next week. Now it's the lead up to referendum day. Seeing all of the political parties and various newsletters I subscribe to, big businesses and campaigning organisations are all coming out saying, make your mind up, basically, and presenting as much information as they can. And I'm just here like, too late. I have already chosen one.
Well, but I think a lot of people don't postal vote. I mean, I'm certainly going to the polling station that morning. There's something I really quite like. I could have postal voted, but there's something I really like about going to
it's
going
quite
there
fun.
and putting your X in the box and drawing things on the ballot. Oh no, wait, you're not supposed to do that.
No,
and then
nor are you supposed to put your X in a box. I can't imagine they would enjoy that.
Oh
yeah.
Oh, you went there.
Like I said, the bad puns
Oh yes,
will only get worse as the
strong this
evening
evening.
continues.
But will the bad puns be better or worse inside or outside of Europe? That is the question of the day.
That is the million euro question.
Indeed. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to be a week of lots of people talking to us about Europe, and a lot of people are still on the fence. The polls are very, very close. They kind of swing one way or another depending on which polls you look at, what day it is, but it's not black and white. It could go either way. I don't think anyone can predict the result right now, which is interesting and fascinating for an election.
Tiny bit scary, depending on your opinion, but
well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. But I think a lot of people are feeling a real duality about whether to vote for Brexit or vote to stay in. And it reminded me a lot of you've seen the Muppet film, right? The newer Muppet movie, not the Most Wanted, but the other one.
Of course, that's the connection you went for. I
was
big
thinking
political decision.
Muppets.
The Muppets, yes.
So I was looking at the flotilla and thought to myself, what a bunch of Muppets. And then it was reminded of that scene from the film, the Muppets film in whatever it was. And
that's the one that had Jason Segel and Jim Parsons.
Yes. And I just I thought to myself, there's that moment, there's that scene where they're singing, am I a man or am I a Muppet? And it just it made me think of the duality of some people's thoughts and minds on this. So I thought I'd have a bit of a sing song. Do you want to hear it?
Go on, man.
Go on then.
I reflect on the election as they ask us all the question, what's the right direction to go? I don't know. Am I in or am I pro-Brexit? If I'm pro-Brexit, then I'm a very racist liberal. Am I pro-Brexit? Or will I vote in? Will I vote in? If I'm in, that makes me a modern Euro man. I look across these aisles and I can't reconcile the hate I see around. It's time for me to decide. Am I in or am I pro-Brexit? If I'm pro-Brexit, well, I'm a very racist liberal. Am I pro-Brexit? Or will I vote in? Will I vote in? If I'm in, that makes me a modern Euro man. Here we go again. They're always campaigning with lies. I think I've made up my mind. Now I understand who I am. I love Europe. I want Brexit. I'm a Euro-loving man. I'm a very racist liberal. That's what I am. Oh well.
Wow.
Wow, yes.
So that goes out to anyone that is at all conflicted about which way to vote. Yeah, it's not easy. It ain't
Being
easy being
green.
green. Yeah. See my Kermit reference there.
Yes. See what you did.
Yeah.
Jokes are always funnier when you explain them.
They are indeed. But I didn't want I didn't want Chris to hog all of the bad puns tonight.
Okay.
Be a bit of a Miss Piggy about it.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fine. You
Uh-huh.
can have that one. So yeah, that was quite something.
Yeah, I mean, the campaigning has really been at fever pitch here in the UK and across Europe, really. There have been all kinds of people on either side coming out and talking about their support of it one way or another. I mean, you've had celebrity endorsements over the past week. There have been all kinds of news stories and facts and figures. Don't you feel like you're being a bit blinded by the amount of stats there are?
There are a lot of stats and facts kind of being thrown at us.
But also a lot of just opinion as well, and feeling and emotion from everyone. And sometimes it's really hard to kind of claw through all that and find, well, what actually does all this mean? What will the consequences be? And it seems like, well, nobody really knows, which, yeah, I think is why it's so emotional and why everyone is, spewing opinion everywhere, because it's kind of, it is really scary. And
Well, I don't think anyone really knows what will
Yeah.
happen either way, right? I mean, if we stay in, then, we continue on the same course for a while, but where does that course take us? Nobody can tell. It's not like we're voting for what do we want to eat tomorrow? Whereas,
This is true.
if we vote leave, then obviously there are a lot of unknowns. We don't really know what's going to happen. I think that the thing that a lot of people don't get as well is that we vote leave. We don't immediately leave. It's a minimum 2-year withdrawal period.
Mm-hmm.
It could take a lot longer. So, we vote leave. Great, lovely. That's going to be 5 or 10 years before we're properly out.
yeah. And that's
People don't realise that.
a lot of years of uncertainty about what the future looks like, which is never kind of good for
Yeah, and I mean,
an economy.
Yeah, even thinking financially and about the economy, you don't know how markets are going to react to that. Is it going to be a turbulent extraction period? You've got to agree terms and all of that. It's a lengthy process. And I've had nobody talking about that on the campaign trail. Nobody talking about, okay, well, if we leave, this is what we have to go through.
No, it just seems like it's some magical thing that will happen. And when people talk about it, it's almost like it.
Like, yay, we've left. No,
Yeah,
no,
that's
we
it.
haven't.
Actually, we're just starting a long, lengthy process. It's going to take a lot of, I suppose, time and man hours. And
Yeah, and I
I-
mean, if you
I
thought the
presume.
renegotiation that happened at the start of the year was lengthy, the leaving would be a lot longer a process. But there you go.
This is true. One thing I've seen being said a lot at the moment, certainly in the last kind of week or so, is that if we vote, whichever way we vote, leave or remain, this isn't a general election, so we won't be able to do it again in 5 years. This
kind of
result will stick with us for a long, long time, possibly forever. We shall see what governments' future decide to do. And whether they want to go back in if we do leave or leave in future if we do stay. But But yeah, this decision will stay with us for a long time.
Yeah, and Anna Yumi points out in the chat room, in the Scottish independence referendum, there was more of a plan. There was a plan for being independent by a certain time, and they had more things in place. Yes, it's a very different situation, and certainly the most unique political situation that most of us will face in our lifetimes, I think. Well, it depends how long we all live, really, I suppose. If I live
True.
for another 100 years, I'm sure there'll be plenty of interesting politics in that time.
Yes. Whether or not the
Politics
new
isn't gonna run
colonized
out.
planet of Mars is going to be part of the solar system or will leave and...
My absolute favorite comment on potentially leaving there is you get kind of sick of the relationship you're in, so you need to remember what being single's like. You think you're the king of the world for a while when you're single, and then desperate times call for desperate measures, and it's like you're using Tinder again politically. You're out there on your own. You don't have the support of that relationship that we've had for the last 40 years, and before you know it, it's 4 a.m. and we're swiping right on Russia.
The very idea of Nigel Farage on Tinder swiping right on Russia is
Yes.
just
Oh dear.
wow. There's a mental
wow.
image.
More random happenings from across the internet. It's time for this week's Tumble Fumble.
So this week was the Queen's 90th birthday. So
Really?
there were all kinds of
It was.
celebrations.
I thought
and
it was the
things like
Queen's
that.
90th birthday earlier in the year,
She kind of has an official birthday, I think, which is different to her.
and an
Other
unofficial birthday.
birthday.
Few goes at having a 90th
Yes.
birthday.
It's like a thing.
suppose
I don't know. Anyway.
If I was turning 90, I'd have a lot of birthdays
Mhm.
because
I'd have at least 90, I think. Spread them out through the year.
bad idea.
You could have
Yeah,
one every
that's-
4 days,
Yeah. That's
give or
that's,
take.
that's about right. That seems like that's a lot of cake. Let's just address that right.
But
right
how
now.
much cake is too
But
much cake? You
When
see,
you're
I-
90.
I would say there is no such thing as too much cake.
if you
it's
haven't
just the
lost both
logistics.
your feet to diabetes by the end of your 91st year, then that's
It's just the logistics that I'm more concerned about here. How are you going to get that much cake produced quickly enough to have a birthday every 4?
I think they're called bakeries.
Yeah, but like a bakery is going to have to go into overdrive to produce enough cake.
Well, they don't have to
Surely.
be massive cakes. It could just be like,
I
those
would
little
want a massive cake.
who wouldn't want
I-
a giant cake?
I feel like we have slightly sidetracked from the.
Well, you could get 90 different bakeries
To bake us 90 different cakes.
to bake us 90 different cakes.
Yes.
Hell yeah. Okay.
Cake
So,
distraction.
Anyway, the Queen has been wearing lots of very brightly coloured outfits. She's been, pretty much every colour out of a pack of highlighter pens.
This is
Extremely
very true.
stylish. Of course, one of them was the colour of a green screen, which gave us hashtag green screen queen.
Not easy
Try
to
saying
say.
that 3 times fast. So, if you just go over to Twitter and stick in green screen queen, you'll see all sorts of wonderfulness. The Queen wearing glitter, the Queen as a corgi.
Wow.
The ship, the QE2 on QE2.
Queen as a corgi. I think
Yeah.
that would be amazing.
Sort of Star Wars playing out on the Queen.
Yeah, that's my favourite one. With the Death Star explosion right on the.
Baked beans.
These are fantastic.
Yeah. It's
that's
pretty
that's
epic.
amazing.
Yeah.
All right.
I love it.
So what else have we got on the Tumble Fumble this week?
Well, sticking with Twitter for a moment, we also have just something that I rather like. I love these reactions Twitter accounts. We've seen a few of those come up on the Fumble before.
Was that like the Pingu one?
like the
that we had?
Pingu one, yeah. But this week I'm going to show you medieval reactions.
Nice.
So if you go along to twitter.com/medieval reacts, you will see some medieval reactions. Which I find quite funny.
Good. Straightforward.
Yeah, not complicated in any way.
Yeah.
Yeah, medieval reacts.
Oh my god, this is amazing.
I mean, again, it's very visual,
it.
so not great for radio, but
That's true.
you can go along and check it out. There's all sorts of things. Usually about chilling with your friends.
When you're chilling, but you remember your life is a mess, and there's just like a painting with a single tear.
Hmm. Some of them are a little sweary, so
Yes.
if you're in the office, I would avoid checking it out.
Me on Facebook versus me on Twitter. One is Yes, one is the Mona Lisa, the other is the Mona Lisa, but there are some naked people there too.
Alrighty then.
Okay, yeah, I'm totally
Yeah.
distracted by this now.
I'm
So-
to be honest with you, I'm still distracted by the green screen queen.
Yeah.
Because there's something that we've retweeted from our Twitter account that is a GIF of Bidoof, so
Yeah.
Pokemon, just there on the queen's top, and it's incredible.
I saw that and I thought that had to be
just
shared with the
Wow.
world.
Well, yeah,
I can see the
want.
Queen here as a pepperoni pizza.
Yes,
Don't we
that's
all
also
see the
brilliant.
queen as a pepperoni pizza?
Is it not treason to say that?
My apologies, Your Majesty. I did not mean to imply that you were edible. I think that's covered us then.
Okay, good.
Good.
So long as we're not at risk of committing treason, we're fine.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And
I'm loving the
yeah.
medieval reactions, I have to say. I'm very distracted by these.
Yeah, they are brilliant. But what else have we got?
what else? One more thing. We're going over to Tumblr, and now we have
Ooh.
deepdarkfears.tumblr.com.
Okay, that sounds deep and dark.
Yes, it's quite ominous. So people submit their deep dark fears, as far as I can gather, and then they get illustrated. And a book has been made, which I'm sure there's links to buy on the site. But it's quite. Yeah,
When I do something stupid and almost get killed, I worry that I just killed myself. Yeah, I just killed another version of myself in an alternate universe.
well, that's kind of how that many worlds theory works, isn't it?
This
So
is true.
you probably did.
I am 5 feet tall. When I'm at the subway, I always wait at least 6 feet away from the tracks. That way, if anyone tries to kill me, I'll fall short.
I mean, it makes sense as a method, but
If you ever sneeze without closing your eyes, your eyeballs pop out of your head. I have
Yeah, to be
sneezed without
fair.
closing my eyes before, and that did not happen to me. But it was not a pleasant experience. Apparently,
No.
it's very, very bad for you. But I was driving, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to sneeze. I need to
Yeah.
keep my eye on the road, and it was awful.
doesn't sound like a pleasant
It sounds
experience.
painful.
Each time I have an unkind thought about someone's physical appearance, I worry that someday I'll inherit all the things I look down on. Oh, that's a nice kind of calmer one there.
Yeah.
In a nightmare, I wake up on a plane. Everyone else is asleep, the crew and the pilots. I try to yell to wake them up, but nothing comes out. Everything's quiet.
Oh,
Wow.
that is a deep, dark fear.
Here's a slightly lighter one. When I put my hand out the window to feel the breeze, I worry that a passing biker will give me a high five and the force will take off both of our arms.
I have
That's
worried
strange.
that, to be fair. I have often wondered what would happen if you high-fived someone at speed and whether it would, break your hand.
When I don't read my messages right away, I worry my friend was asking for help from a kidnapper's trunk, but by the time I answer, her phone is dead. I am now
Dun,
never
dun,
going to be able to
dun.
leave a text message again unread.
That's why it's so nice to have those previews that come up on your phone, so you can just sort of
Yes.
see that it doesn't start with "Help! I'm caught in a trunk."
Help, I'm caught in a bear trap.
Yes.
When I'm at the pool and I dive under the surface, I worry that when I get back to the surface, I'll be in the middle of a shoreless sea.
There was a suit in a wardrobe in my bedroom left behind after the home's previous owner died. I double-checked that it was locked every night because I knew that his ghost hung inside.
Creepy.
Wow.
Well, these are quite
This
deep
is really
and dark and
why,
fearful.
This is not quite the
This is
not
not
quite
the
the level of
Tumble, fumble,
jollity
levity.
that we're used to.
Yeah, I thought it was something a little bit different, a little bit.
It's
This
not.
is
weirder,
true.
a little
I
bit.
like the
The
idea.
illustrations are
Thought-provoking.
absolutely
Fantastic.
amazing, and the illustrations are just fantastic.
Mm.
Sometimes when the sun is bright, I worry that my glasses will amplify the light, like a magnifying glass can do to ants, and I'll get 2 holes burned through my head.
I asked my parents why I could never remember the moment I fell asleep. They told me it's because I am a cyborg that they shut down each night.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow, parenting.
yeah.
Every night, my older sister used to tell me a story, My whole life was just a hallucination. I was actually just a brain in a jar, and she was a scientist who felt sorry for me and sent me messages. Wow, what a mean thing to say. That's like, the Matrix is real, everyone.
My house has an entryway with 2 doors, like an airlock. I knew if I ever opened both doors at the same time, I'd be sucked out into the vacuum of space.
Well, Dweeb says, if I were in a trunk, I had my phone, I'd probably call the police, not my friend. Scattermoon, of course, taking the British approach to the word trunk and saying, if I were in a trunk, I'd have been eaten by a tree. And to rival your terrible puns of the evening, Chris, its bark would be worse than its bite.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's also an excellent link that Scattermoon has posted where someone has, or various people on Reddit have tried to calculate how fast would both hands have to be going in a standard high five to break one or both of the hands, which is sort of morbidly fascinating. So I will be having a look at that later.
Indeed.
#maths.
Indeed,
Yes.
indeed. Well, thank you very much, Catherine, for this week's Tumble Fumble. Very enlightening.
Yes.
Lots of very interesting things on there this
I don't
week.
follow that Deep Dark Fears account, just in case, a really scary one
Mm-hmm.
Pops
pops
up.
up while I'm browsing Tumblr and then I
Yeah.
can't fall asleep.
You're
It's
like,
nice to have some more tumbles, though. I mean, we've had a lot of
Yes.
Twitter accounts
We
recently.
have, yeah.
It's good to be getting back into the Tumblr
I've
stuff.
been spending a bit more time over on Tumblr, which is nice.
You're listening to the Geekly Chronicles.
And now, the ripping forecast issued by the Geekly Chronicles on behalf of Elastoplast at 1900. The general synopsis this evening. Mussels, 4. 7 with spinach. Olive oil later, good. Cord, 6. Parachutes recommended. Seams, 2 layers of fabric. Stitch failure likely. Van Winkle, 8. 20-year delays possible. Curl, 8. Australian boardwear, meaningless but groovy. Jeans, 5 or 6. Knee beards possible. Ripped skin tattoos, 6 on the surface, 9 underneath. CDs, iTunes 12 required, digital audio extraction to be expected. DVDs, 6. Reformatting and compression likely. People off, 7. Swindling, good. Torn, 5. 6 if out of faith, this is how I feel. Cold and ashamed, naked on floor later. Tide, 9 within estuaries and enclosed tidal areas, strong. Current, 5. Often mistaken for rip tide. Slash, 9 if shipping your OTP. Veet wax strips, 8. Avoid for knee beards. And that ends the ripping forecast.
You're listening to the Geekly Chronicles.
One of the things that I've always loved is independent films, films that are, really made by people who are passionate about stuff, where the motivation isn't, being a giant Hollywood studio and making lots of money. And I know it's something that you love as well, Chris. And
This is true.
we, alongside the Geekly Chronicles, have done plenty of work around some of those things. And one of the podcasts that I listen to quite often is UK Scriptwriters podcast, and the people who run that podcast have also created a film recently that was kickstarted. The film is called Who Killed Nelson Nutmeg, and I went to see it, and it's absolutely sensational. But my words will not do it justice, so I'm going to bring up the phone now, and hopefully we have Danny on the line with us, our guest for this evening. Hello, Danny.
Hello there.
How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's very exciting.
Oh, thanks for joining us. So I just introduced you a little bit there, but really I'd been following along your podcast for a while, but I first got really interested in the stuff you were doing with the film Who Killed Nelson Nutmeg. Can you give for our listeners who maybe haven't seen it, can you give us a brief kind of synopsis? What's the film about?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Nelson Nutmeg, the titular character, he's a kind of a 6-foot squirrel mascot at a kind of summer camp. And at this summer camp, 4 kids kind of meet regularly there on their summer holidays. So they think they're too old for the camp now, and they think they're too old for Nelson Nutmeg. But one night, one of the kids thinks they see Nelson arguing with someone on top of the cliffs, and gets pushed off, and thinks Nelson falls to his death. And so she tries to tell her parents, and she tries to tell the owners, but nobody believes her. And so she convinces her friends to kind of go out and find out who killed Nelson Nutmeg.
So it's kind of a whodunit, but with a squirrel.
Exactly that, yeah. But a kid's whodunit, harking back to when films like this used to be made on a regular basis, which is kind of in the 70s and 80s. I mean, even if you think back to something like The Goonies, we wanted to get something going with that kind of vibe, something with kids in the lead roles, and just getting out there, having fun and having adventures. And where we filmed it and where we're from, down in Bournemouth and Dorset, it's got strong connections down here with the famous five and things like that. So we just thought, well, let's do a kind of a famous five by way of Scooby-Doo, by way of Goonies, for whatever we can afford, and just have some fun, really.
Well, and you mentioned having kids in the starring role, which is great, and that we haven't really seen films like this for a few decades. It's which is a shame, because having seen the film, it's incredible and really gripping and engaging, and shows off how great and talented young people can be as well. But I mean, it just seems like there's such a push for kind of high octane, high action films that are maybe not as relatable to people as something like meeting up with some friends on a holiday camp and going on an adventure would be.
Yeah.
I mean, why do you think we've got less of that kind of relatable stuff now? Well,
I think Hollywood films and kind of box office, international box office, it's all a kind of high stakes business. So when kind of they make family films, they want them to be guaranteed to be a success. So things like Harry Potter or Nanny McPhee, they're based on pre-existing properties, books or comics or games or whatever, and it's an easier thing to do, but and they put in a lot of money. But we were like, there should be original stories. It shouldn't be just based on books and things. And also, we shouldn't just be reliant on Hollywood or even Pixar, because Pixar kind of reinvented the animation genre for a bit. And now it's, so family films are actually big business, but we kind of rely on Hollywood, Pixar, or kind of big budget adaptations of things. And we just think there could be a market, or there should be a invigoration of the genre just in this country to get something back that's more culturally relevant, diverse characters that people could relate to and connect with, from all around the country. We're not even making this film as a stepping stone genre to something else. We want to make more of these films and really champion the family film genre back to the UK. I mean, great, coming up later in the summer, there's a film called Swallows and Amazons coming out. But, that's a remake, and it's based on a book and stuff. But we're excited about it because it's got kids in the lead roles pretty much. But again, if you try to make that as an original idea, you'd be struggling probably.
No, I saw a trailer for that film, Swallows and Amazons. It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
It does look very good. It's got some fairly big names in it as well, which is obviously slightly more Hollywood. I think does it have one of the actresses in it that you had in your film as well? I seem to see a familiar face in the trailer. I could be mistaken though.
I don't think so. Funnily enough, though, one of the kids in our film did get a role in Game of Thrones.
Oh, really?
While we were filming Nelson Nutmeg, so it kind of messed around our schedule a little bit. But it was very exciting for her and for us as well, because it was a fairly prominent role for a few episodes. And what we love about our kids as well, that in the film, I mean, we cast locally down in Bournemouth, so they're all local actors. A couple of them had never acted before. Two of them we found on a big open audition day. And so we were just really kind of pleased and proud that we kept everything pretty much local, cast, crew, all the great locations we have down here. I mean, Kez, you've seen the film. It doesn't look cheap, does it? It looks pretty awesome because of where it's set along the Jurassic coastline.
Yeah.
And so we just tried to milk everything for what we could, really.
I mean, everything about the film felt really high quality, and I think that's one of the things that really inspired me about it. That you don't necessarily have to be a Hollywood film to make something look great, and you don't necessarily have to use green screens and special effects to make things engaging. I mean, there was one particular bit in the film where you have someone climbing down a cliff, and I suppose it would have been so easy to green screen that, but you didn't, did you? How did you do that? How did you effectively throw an 11-year-old off a cliff? But not
that was
actually?
Great. That was really exciting, actually. I mean, we going into the production, we didn't want to do any fancy visual effects, and obviously because we're pretty low budget, we just kind of wrote things that we could achieve. So with the character of Woody kind of being lowered down the cliff on a rope, we found a spot on the cliff that, with a little bit of depth perception or, it kind of, when he starts to go down, it looks like he's actually going over. And then the rest is just clever kind of shots and editing. And then it just works really well. And even even the kids who were there in the scene, when they watched it back, they convinced themselves that they really did it. And you have to remind them saying, it was perfectly safe and everything was all right. I mean, we were supposed to have a stuntman, actually, just to kind of help out for that day. And he couldn't make it in the end. And the guy who plays Woody was really worried. He goes, "Oh my God, where's my stuntman? Am I going to fall?" But then he was just like, he couldn't get enough of it in terms of going over that ledge and stuff. So it was all really good fun. And I mean, as you say, it looks pretty realistic.
It does. And talking about, you got local actors and, you did that kind of call for casting, and it's fantastic. You did also have a Hollywood actress in the film, though, as well, right? You had Ginny Weasley.
Ginny Weasley from Harry Potter, Bonnie Wright, which was brilliant because, well, we wanted to get somebody in the film that people would recognize and would maybe give it a bit of credibility. And also, just on the practical side of things, help sell the film, so that it wasn't just a bunch of people that you didn't hear or you never heard of. So we got Bonnie, and because she's playing the villain as well, we thought that might kind of appeal to her. And we have to say, fair dues to her agent, because we contacted Bonnie's agent and said we were doing this low-budget family film where there would be hardly any money in it for Bonnie, and that means hardly any money for the agent. But the agent said, send me through the script and I'll pass it on. So we were very grateful for that. And then Bonnie read it and said, I'll chat to the guys. So we had a Skype with her, and she saw that we weren't too crazy. And she said, okay, I'll do it if you can make it work for my schedule. So she came down on the last week of filming. By herself, being picked up in Dorchester station by Tim, the co-director. She really, just let herself open to the whole process. She really got on with the crew. She was a big inspiration for the kids. I mean, she grew up on the Harry Potter set, so she was really, it was great. She just brought an extra bit of class and professionalism to everything. So we were just thrilled to have her. She was great.
And you say that she was an inspiration to the kids in the. I mean, how many kids did you actually have in the film? I mean, I know the main characters, but there were lots of extras and people around. What was the cast like?
Yeah, there was the main gang of five. Well, four. The main gang of 4 kids plus the older brother, so that makes 5. And then the rest of the kids were people who we met in the audition process, who we didn't think were suitable for the main roles, but they had just had something about them that we thought we'd use, and if they wanted to be extras, and some of them then got a few lines. If you remember, there's a fun interrogation sequence where the character of the colonel interrogates some of the kids around the camp, so that was fun. They all really enjoyed that. And then we got anybody that was local down in Bridport, where we shot mainly, who wanted to be involved. So there was a good maybe dozen extra kids that we kind of used in a cycle. So when you see one kid in one scene, you'll definitely see them later on being used again. But that was really great, and it kind of worked out really well. So yeah. But again, just going back to the fantastic talent that's in the area, once you start to kind of really noodle it out, as it were, just really kind of do the search.
I think a lot of people that would think about writing for TV and film veer away from thinking about writing not necessarily writing for kids, but writing for things that have young people in it, because I think there is the perception of there being a lot of barriers, making sure that you're not overworking people. Is the quality going to be good? Are people going to be professional enough?
It's the old Hollywood adage, isn't it? Never work with children or animals.
Well, and that can't be right, because, the people have to get into the industry somewhere, and the kids in this film were amazingly talented. So, what would you say to those people that say never work with children or animals?
Well, never work with kids or animals. We worked with kids in a 6-foot kind of squirrel, so we were kind of really pushing our luck. But
doing both.
The kids were really professional. We did spend about 4 months in the casting process, so we were quite careful and thorough. And so by the time we were ready to shoot, everybody was pretty much a tight-knit gang, and we were all having good fun off screen. And what was really interesting was, because they're children, their brains kind of just are able to soak up information very quickly. So even like 5 minutes before shooting a scene, we would maybe do some rehearsal with them, and they wouldn't know their lines, and that would kind of frustrate us. But then 5 minutes later, when it was due to film, they'd have learned their lines so quickly.
Wow.
And the restricted hours in terms of that you have with children, the good old child labour laws kind of thing, that was actually a useful kind of parameter in a way for us, because it kind of ensured that all of us were doing everything that we should, rather than getting delayed or lagging behind. So really, the kids didn't really delay anything at all with the process, either with their acting or with the production. And it worked out fantastic. So we're either really, really lucky, because in our next film we do have a dog, and so we're anticipating that might be a bit more tricky.
Possibly not as quick to learn the lines.
Exactly, yeah.
No, but do you think the dog is going to be as easy to work with as the squirrel?
I think the dog will probably have a better Winnebago, as they say, a little makeup trailer for itself than the other cat. But we'll see.
So, moving away from Nelson Nutmeg for a minute, you also run the UK Scriptwriters podcast as well.
Yeah.
And the feeling that I get certainly from the podcast and the stuff you've done with the work of yours that I've seen, there's a real sense of community and kind of giving back to the community and being part of a community as well. But I think perception, certainly for a lot of people that are newly getting into writing scripts, whether it's for television or radio or theatre or film, it is that it's very cutthroat, that it's very, hold your cards close to your chest and don't share those ideas because people might steal them or critique them. What's your experience of that? Do you feel like it's a community, or is it a Shark Tank?
Well, it can be a mixture of both, but luckily I think there's a real kind of positive writing and filmmaking community out there, especially with the way the internet has kind of developed, what with Twitter and social media and things like that. If you kind of follow or connect with the right people, you'll always have a kind of an endless resource of either information or support. And I remember, I was starting out pretty much around 20 years ago, and as a writer and not knowing anybody, and the internet really hadn't taken off in the way that it is now, and you just feel lonely and you feel isolated and you feel like the industry might be a bit of a Shark Tank. But then, everything that I've done in terms of, as you say, building that community is just things that I think would be helpful, or things that I would have loved myself when I was starting out. So, even setting up a writing competition, or setting up a writing blog that I did, and just sharing information about what I was learning and my experiences as a new writer, as well as the amount of script reading I was doing. And then you just get into conversations with people and you become friends. And I think that's pretty much what happened with myself and Tim. Tim Clegg, he kind of runs the podcast with me, and we made Nelson Nutmeg together. And I think if we weren't of the same like-minded kind of personalities of just kind of wanting to do stuff, but also wanting to share and support others, I don't think we would have even collaborated or made even Nelson Nutmeg or done the podcast. But now we're working together even more, and we're going to make another family film, and things are looking to go from strength to strength, really.
Oh, that's amazing, and it's fantastic to hear about the community aspect to things as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm be keen to hear about your motivation and what really got you into writing as well, because it's a thing of passion for me, certainly, and a lot of the writing that I do. It's something that I just love, and that's storytelling. But I think there's a perception again that you do stuff like that to get into Hollywood, and it's glamorous, and it's full of rich people. And I don't know about you, but I've not met in person any actually rich writers.
No.
The ones that are rich and famous don't tend to go to the same coffee shops that I do. So
yeah. You're certainly not doing it for the money. Which, I mean, there can be good money in it, especially if you write regularly for TV and things. And as you say, there's good money in Hollywood, but you don't pursue it, or you don't want to become a writer for the money. If you do, then that's the wrong kind of starting point, and maybe rethink your priorities. But it's interesting when you ask somebody, what inspired you to become a writer. It's such a tough question to answer, and it's something that I think about a few times and come up with different answers to. But I just think back to my childhood, I think, in terms of just being really inspired and enthralled by not just TV and cinema, but just story in general, and knowing that there was something magical and special about story, and then that a writer as well was almost like that special person who held all the kind of magic ingredients, I guess. That's something that always kind of appealed to me. And then as I kind of made my way out into the world, as it were, and you kind of get a job, and there's just something nagging at you in the back of your mind saying, I've got to write. And then I remember when I made the decision, right, I'm going to be a full-time writer, just very boldly, I just said, right, I'm giving up my job and I'm going to become a writer, because I just knew I had to give it a really full and proper go, rather than think, I regret my time now because I never really tried it. But, I gave up my job, and I dived into the process, and it still takes a while. There's not an immediate return. The thing about writing is nobody has asked you to write, and no one really cares, unfortunately. But you'll get some support from friends and family and things. But that motivation to write must come from your passion for story, I guess, and just to keep on going as well when times look tough or you get rejected.
It can be quite a leap of faith, can't it, to just get started with writing specifically full time, but in general to kind of to have the motivation to get the ideas flowing, because that really, like you say, it can't come from anywhere else. So it can be quite scary to just say, right, I'm going to do this, and then the ideas don't flow immediately, and then you think, oh God, what have I done?
Exactly.
But
I mean,
you can easily,
sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can easily convince yourself that there isn't time to write. I mean, people do have busy schedules and busy jobs and busy lives, but everybody has the same amount of time in the day, and writers, whatever their position in terms of, they could be working in a day job and have 5 kids or whatever it is. Writers who want to write will always find that time somewhere. And so there's no excuses now. You just, if you want to write, you got to find the time, and there'll be nothing stopping you. Nobody's asked you to write, but nobody can tell you that you shouldn't write. So you just got to crack on.
That's it's really great advice, and certainly I know that in spite of having a day job and a radio show and a bunch of other things to do, I still find the time to sit down and write, and I get very sad if I don't have a chance. I kind of get that itching to make the time to do it. But would you?
Right.
I mean, do you have any advice for anyone that's maybe sat there thinking, okay, yeah, I'd love to be a full-time writer. I'd love to give up my day job and do that. That's amazing, but money and security and everything's scary.
Yes. Well, I mean, first of all, it's very exciting, and I'm envious in terms of the potential that's ahead of anybody who's just kind of starting and has that urge. My number one bit of advice was don't do what I did, which was give up the day job. And unless you really want that big kind of push and behind you to kind of really do something,
because you're going to have to do it if you do that.
You kind of have to do it. There's nothing else, and you have to find some way to pay the bills. But I would say, make sure you don't be afraid to start. As in, if it's a script, if it's a book, if it's a short story, if it's anything, just don't be afraid to start. And then once you've started, absolutely make sure that you finish it, because that's the number one thing. A lot of people start stories and then never finish for whatever reason. It could be lack of confidence. It could have been time distractions or whatever. But, people get ideas and they start and then they might fizzle out. So it's just like once you start, which is great, then make sure you finish, because when you've finished it, you've got something, and you've got something you can either rewrite and make better, or you've got something that could be in a good position for you to send to a producer or an agent or a publisher or whatever it is that you've written. Nothing happens unless you start, and then nobody wants to read anything if it's not finished. So just start and finish. That's the main two things.
And I'm keen to hear your thoughts on things like self-publishing. So obviously, kind of going back to Nelson Nutmeg, you didn't kind of get that script commissioned through a film studio or anything like that. You crowdfunded.
No.
You went ahead and you did that. And a lot of people will be thinking, well, I'm interested in writing. I'm also interested in producing and casting and owning that whole process. I mean, would you have any advice for anyone that, or certainly any thoughts around self-publishing versus going through publishers for books or film studios for film and that kind of thing?
Well, that's really good, because nowadays you can pretty much do anything thanks to the internet, and self-publishing can be a really good way of getting your work out there and even getting more attention than you thought you were ever going to get, or more success. I mean, even something like The Martian, that film with what's his name? The Bourne Identity
Matt
guy.
Damon.
Matt Damon. That started off as a blog. He was putting out the book as a chapter by blog, and he ended up self-publishing, and then it's a major Hollywood film. So I think if you're interested in self-publishing, if you're interested in making a film, there are ways that you can just dive in and learn and kind of do everything yourself. But I think anything big, a big project like a feature film, I think it's great if you have a little team. There was myself and Tim to begin with, and then we kind of gathered a little team of about 6 people to kind of help us, and that really helped kind of just get the momentum going. So things that you don't know about, or you're unsure in terms of certain areas that might be weak for you, or you just don't know how it works, somebody else will know and they'll help you. And it just makes sure that everything keeps going, really. Because there's no way I would have made Nelson Nutmeg by myself, I don't think. I would have struggled a hell of a lot more. So having that team, or having people that you trust that you can go to and collaborate with, or even just asking for help is not a bad thing, just as long as you've maintained momentum.
Lovely. Well, I mean, thank you so much for some really great words. I know that we've had some people in our chat room saying they're really enjoying this interview. So thank you for being on the
great.
show.
I've been making notes.
Yes, there we go. But
Awesome.
Just before we go, let's kind of go back to Nelson Nutmeg. I mean, I was so impressed with the film when I went to see it. I'm not saying that to make you blush. I mean, I thought the acting was superb. The soundtrack was inspired. I think the whole thing was brilliant.
Yeah.
How can our listeners see this great film? I mean, I went along to a screening that was like an hour and a half's drive away just because it was a day that I happened to be free. But we've got listeners from around the globe. How and when can these people see Nelson Nutmeg?
Well, for those in America, if you've got listeners in America, it's actually going to be out on video on demand on the 24th of June. So you'll be able to watch it on Netflix and Amazon and iTunes and all those kind of usual places. So we're very excited about that.
Fantastic.
In the UK at the moment, it's in cinemas, but only in kind of selected cinemas nationwide. It's been on a mini cinema tour. So it's next on in Aberdeen and Edinburgh on the 2nd and 3rd of July, and then it's going to be in Manchester, I think, in September, on the 24th and 25th of September. We might have a few other public screenings. There's more film festival screenings lined up here and there, but then we will be kind of arranging the UK video on demand / DVD release probably later in the summer or in the autumn. So anybody who wants to keep up to date, they should just kind of visit the website, which is nelsonnutmeg.com. You can sign up to kind of get updates, or just check the website for trailers and news and things like that. But yeah, everything's kind of out there now, but everything is also coming soon. So yeah, it's great.
Fantastic. And I know we've got some listeners up in Scotland, so hopefully they'll be able to make one of those screenings soon.
I look forward to seeing it when it comes to Netflix and similar on-demand services.
Yeah,
I live in none of those places.
Yes, well, I certainly can't wait to be able to Netflix and Nutmeg. So
nice.
There's a hashtag right there. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the show today, Danny. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I know that I've got a lot out of this. I think our listeners have as well. So really appreciate you being here.
Now for this week's Game of Geeks.
Game of Geeks.
Indeed.
For those of you new listening, this is the time of the week where Chris and I are pitted against each other. Catherine asks us questions about books, TV, film, etc. And, Chris and I duke it out.
Yeah, so
yes.
at the
Flotilla
moment,
not required.
I think after 5 episodes, we're at Kez 3 and Chris 2.
Yes, just.
Sounds about right.
Just.
So,
Chris has been doing a lot better this series than last series.
This is true.
Yeah, this time last series, Kez was running away with it.
I'm
won, better at this now.
Right.
Just sticking that in there.
I'm better now, honest.
I will give out 3 clues to a thing, and if Kez or Chris manages to guess on the first clue, they get 3 points. Second clue, 2 points. If they need 3 clues, then it's just 1 point, and we add them all up at the end and see who wins. So, should we get started?
Yeah. Should we see what our buzzers are this week?
I think we should. This week, Kez goes.
I see.
Thinking that's a foghorn. I'm hoping that's a foghorn.
Yep.
And Chris goes.
I see where the buzzers came from.
We stole them from Would You Fund It?
Yes, as we do most weeks.
Jerry.
I want that buzzer.
Okay, so this week we are starting with a TV show.
Ooh.
So this is a soap opera. The first episode aired on the 19th February 1985. Kez.
EastEnders.
Yes.
Damn it.
I know when EastEnders started. That's depressing, isn't it?
To be fair, I probably should have just buzzed at soap opera.
I quite often tell
4.
it's a guilty confession time. I quite often tell people soap operas. I never watch them. They're terrible, and I don't watch soap operas. I have taken to watching clips of EastEnders on YouTube, so it keeps coming up in my most recently watched. So I don't ever watch full episodes, but I'm like, oh, I've read about that in the news. I want to see that. And then
seeing your YouTube history, it's quite a picture.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Oh dear, guilty.
No, I think I gave up on. My family always watched soaps. They gave up on EastEnders first, but then Coronation Street hung around for a long time, being watched in our house. I think I was about 14 when I just said enough is enough. I'm not doing this anymore.
I used to watch Neighbours with my older brother quite a lot. Neighbours was the one that persisted, I think, for me.
Yeah.
Did go through a phase when I started university of watching Home and Away. Got very into that in my first year of uni.
You know we belong.
I think it's always kind of one or the other, really. It's Neighbours or Home and Away. I don't know anyone that watches both.
Anyway,
Moving on.
Our second thing is an album.
exciting.
This is a new category. Clue number 1 is this is the 8th studio album of progressive rock band Pink Floyd.
Now, Chris is wearing a Pink Floyd T-shirt today.
Seeing if it has
Which
the
may
number.
have been
I don't
a
know.
subliminal message.
I'm just gonna guess based on my T-shirt. It's not Dark Side of the Moon, is it?
Yes.
There we go.
Just making sure everyone's paying attention to their T-shirts
Good
today.
Great. Mine's blue stripy.
Well, in fairness, Kez has been looking at Chris all day, whereas Chris probably hasn't
I
been
haven't
looking
been
at
looking
his
at
shirt.
myself as much.
But I just thought to myself, it won't be that one. That would be too obvious for you to have. No, apparently not.
You've been taking part in Game of Geeks this series,
Yeah,
right?
remember,
All right, okay. Neck and
remember
neck. We're neck and neck.
last show where one of the clues was the film you saw the day before the show.
Oh, yes.
So we are level
Right, okay.
pegging at the
Neck and
moment. three all.
All righty.
Why do I bother making 3 clues for each thing? Okay, next up we have a book.
Okay.
This book was privately printed by Beatrix Potter in 1901 after several publisher rejections.
Dear.
It's not Peter
Kez?
Rabbit, is it?
Yeah.
Hey.
Or The Tale of Peter Rabbit.
The Tale of Peter
yeah.
Rabbit. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Should've
another
buzzed.
3 points for Kaz.
Whoa.
This is.
Okay, so I didn't need to look up
This is
trivia
quick.
such as Peter Rabbit's siblings, Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail.
Yeah, we are missing out on a lot of trivia.
Incidentally,
here.
names that I will call any children that I have.
yes, this is good. Okay, so next we have a film.
Okay.
Kez's traditional strong point.
What that says about me, I don't know.
You watch a lot of films the day before we do shows.
This is true.
So this film features the voices of Alexander Gould, Albert Brooks, Ellen DeGeneres, and William Dafoe.
So it's going to be Finding Nemo / Finding Dory.
You're gonna have to pick one.
Well, Finding Dory just came out today, so that.
No.
So I said, but how can it? No, come on.
Is it Finding Nemo, Catherine?
Yeah. How is that fair?
Oh, Game of Geeks is many things. It is not
It is
fair.
not fair. Justice is swift.
I'm going to rebel. I'm going to get a flotilla going here.
Justice in Game of Geeks is swift and disproportionate.
So we are still level pegging with 6 points each.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go for a 5th thing.
Eyebreaker.
If I lose this week, then I am I'm legal action against you, young lady.
You're going to sue
Right.
Catherine for losing a quiz.
Yeah, well, what was that?
That was
Unfair.
you being given 2 options and picking the wrong one. That's what that was. That was the red pill and the blue pill, except with films. Anyway,
So we have a game next.
Okay.
oh dear.
This ancient Indian board game, now regarded as a worldwide classic, is played on a grid of numbered squares.
Okay,
Numbered squares.
Mm-hmm.
I
I
can't.
can think of one, but I thought that was Chinese.
Kez?
Not mahjong.
No.
That's Chinese, isn't it?
Mm,
Thought so.
I think so.
Right.
Next clue.
Okay, so this game is supposed to represent a life journey hindered by vices and virtues. Kev?
Snakes and ladders.
Yes.
Oh!
Oh.
Yes!
Which gives Kez
Hindered.
Oh wow.
an extra 2
Snakes and
points.
ladders. Because everyone knows that snakes help in life and ladders hinder.
Yeah, sure. That's how it works.
the way round.
Yep.
We're going to play that game after the show, just so
Okay.
that we,
Okay.
just to clear a few things up.
So we all know what this means.
Oh, was that the end of the quiz? Oh, in spite of my Finding Dory, Finding Nemo,
Fluff up.
fluff up, Indeed. I get to press this button.
This week's winner is... Kez.
Woo indeed.
Wow. Well, I have learned a lot about snakes and ladders today. So, while you bask in your aura of success, which is actually physically starting to glow in the studio, quite worryingly.
I've got a bit of a green glow around me tonight.
Yes, you do. Might just be the
Making
new
its way
lights.
all the way over here.
Yes.
Might just be the new lights. Might be the success aura. Let's check back in with the Would You Fund It?
Oh, yes. How's that going?
Well, let's have a look at
Your
the results
family
for
flotilla.
Family Flotilla. You've been voting in our Twitter poll and on the website, and it seems that it would be funded by our audience tonight.
Oh, wow.
Family Flotilla is a success with 100% of tonight's audience in support.
Nobody disliked Family Flotilla. That's amazing.
Apparently
So,
not.
speaking of, basking in success, isn't that 2 things you've had funded?
That is 2 things I've had funded.
Does that mean you're in the lead?
I am in the lead. I have had more things funded than either of you.
So I had one thing funded and one didn't. So my Jammy
Yes.
Dodgers got funded in episode 1.
But then Banty Locks and the 3 Lads from episode 4 did not
Did not.
get funded.
Yeah, and the Rickman Factor was not funded for me, but
Yes.
last time, but
The Great British Boot
the
Camp.
Great British Boot Camp was.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So, Chris, you are
I
clearly
both
have
things.
better ideas than us.
Apparently so. That's what the audience says.
That is pretty amazing.
But if you want to see all of the facts about who's had what funded, you can still check out the page at gkly.co/fundit, and it has a lovely little pie chart that's very blue because apparently I'm the blue pie wedge.
I see. And,
If
go
you've
on.
missed any of our ideas, you can always catch up with those on our YouTube channel.
Yes.
We have all our Fundit promos in there for you to listen back to if you missed one.
And this one will be back up, and also the Brexit song as well. So
Yes.
any little songs we do, they're up there on the YouTube channel as well. In fact, your one-stop shop for anything after the show is YouTube. If you want to listen to the show back with all of the music as intended, though, you need to go to Mixcloud for that. That's they're the lovely people that do their licensing. That means we get to pay the musicians, which is the right thing to do.
It is.
But
We do like paying people.
we do. But yeah, certainly the Family Flotilla and Am I Brexit song, they will be up on YouTube momentarily after the show. But what else
Scattermoon
is
says putting the fun into fundraising.
putting the fun into fundraising? Yeah.
I'm not going to read out the rest of what she said. But
Well,
in
thinking
other
of
news-
thinking of things that are coming to a glorious end.
not unlike the show,
we need to return to Earth for this story. But
do.
we do.
We talked before, probably in the previous series, about astronaut Tim Peake going up to the International Space Station.
very exciting.
And tomorrow morning, he should arrive back.
Ah,
So,
That's,
British astronaut Tim Peake, who's been up on the International Space Station for a 6-month tour,
I believe so.
went up there as part of the Principia mission. So there were lots of science-related experiments going on. He also took up a lot of experiments from school kids, including a few Raspberry Pis with code that children across the UK had written. It's the first British astronaut we've had up on the ISS for a while, and yeah, it's just been really great seeing all of Tim's tweets, and he's been doing this thing called Space Rocks, where he's been kind of making a playlist of songs inspired by the different views that he wakes up to in the morning, which you can kind of check out using the Space Rocks hashtag on Twitter. But yeah, it will be returning to Earth, and I think the first question that any of us had about that was our production assistant, who wondered if he would be walking to Tesco with a limp.
yes,
As the gravity is, exists here.
yes. So important questions to be asking from the Geekly staff.
And I think just getting used to doing things. I see one of the other astronauts that had returned before saying, just things like passing a pen to somebody else, for example. You kind of go to throw it, expecting it to just
land.
float over to the other person, and it
Not
doesn't, and it just
Yeah.
falls to the
Yeah.
I suppose everything you've picked up all these new habits and muscle memory and everything, and then just remembering how you used to do everything. It must be so strange.
It's like riding a bike and then not riding a bike and riding something else and then riding a bike again.
Or when you get off a bike and it feels like your legs are still going round and round.
I've never had that.
Really?
No, when I get off a bike, it feels like I've got off a bike.
All right. I still feel like my legs are going round.
When was the last time you rode a bike?
Anyway, I don't know.
I must
5
say,
years ago, something like
Right.
Scattermoon in the chat room has given us an excellent Tim Peake pun. When he sneezes, does Team Rocket try catching him? Peak a chew.
I see.
Nice. I'm a fan.
Well, so someone has
the crew are applauding.
bad punned you this evening.
Yes, I will hand over my pun crown.
Oh, that's awful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I can smell
I
the
like
cheese
that.
about that one from here.
I like that pun.
Yeah. And so, thanks again to our guest tonight as well, Danny Stack, who came on talking about indie films as well. There are lots of great indie film projects all over the place. I mean, you can go to something like Kickstarter and search for them.
Yes.
There's also a great indie film website where you can go to and book tickets to indie films like Nelson Nutmeg. I go to a lot of screenings of films from there just because, well, it's interesting.
It is.
It's nice to see things that aren't just mass-produced films.
Mm.
There are also
Through the
some
Hollywood machine.
Well, there are also some fantastic independent local plays happening. Well, they happen. I mean, there's some local to me, but they're local all over the place. There are fantastic independent plays happening. Local is available in your location too.
Yes. This is a local play for local people.
Yes. And we'll be the three of us plus some of the other Geekly crew are going to see an indie play in September. That's going to be quite
Indeed.
good. But they're
Exciting.
they're everywhere, and there are so many things you can do to get involved as well. So Danny was talking about getting involved in writing as well. But if you feel like doing a bit of acting or a bit of performing or whatever you want to do, just don't come up with excuses. Just get out there and do stuff. There is always stuff going on wherever you are, which is amazing. Just fantastic. I mean, even in the smallest backwater parts of the world, there is stuff going on.
Yes. We say as we broadcast from a bunker several feet below the ground.
Yes, here in Siberia.
Yes.
There are lots of opportunities for
Geekly
local
Chronicles
actors.
is going on.
Yes.
So that's about it.
Yeah. I think I saw a frozen tumbleweed. Although, did you read?
I was trying to think of a frozen tumbleweed pun, and my brain just went and stalled.
Frozen tumbleweed fumbleweed.
But did you read? I don't know. I'm just
Never
ignoring
mind.
that.
Move on.
Ignore Chris. Makes no sense. There's a crater has opened up in Siberia, and the local people are calling it the mouth to hell.
Okay.
And they're
Not
thinking
at all
that
ominous.
no, but they're thinking that the scientists are thinking, and I was reading this on a website earlier, that because the ground is so rich in permafrost, even though it's not icy ground, a lot of the frost has melted due to global warming in the area, and so there's just kind of this big crater where the ground used to be supported by so much ice and no longer is, has opened up. But it's huge, and it's getting deeper and growing and growing and growing, and locals have got this real kind of mystical suspicion about it, because this crater has just opened up and keeps getting bigger and is swallowing up more of Siberia.
Wow.
So there's far more than just the Geekly Chronicles going on in Siberia. But it was
Indeed,
very
clearly.
interesting to read about, and they were calling it the gateway to hell, and the mouth of the underworld, and local people were saying they were hearing banging and wailing from
wow.
but that's obviously not true. It's just global warming.
Just going to double check the location of the Geekly bunker and make sure we're not in the path of the oncoming mouth to hell.
Yes.
Although that would explain the kind of banging and the screaming.
Yeah.
It's just,
No, I thought that was
was
just you building the studio, Chris.
Yeah.
But
it's just us doing a Would You Fund It? I mean,
yeah. I can't believe we're at the end of the show.
we
know.
are.
Oh, it's
That
amazing.
came upon us rather suddenly.
It did, yes,
did.
but what a song.
Yes.
So huge thanks again to our guest, Danny Stack, for being such an inspirational fellow this evening.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris, for your fantastic Would You Fund It? Very good.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
Thank
Well
you,
done.
listeners, for funding it.
Yes,
Well,
yes, well done on that one.
Hypothetically funding it.
And well done me, hey, for winning Game of Geeks
done.
again there.
Always taking the opportunity for a pat on the back.
Patting
A
myself on the back.
self-pat on the
there, yeah.
back.
So thank you very much, everyone, for listening this week. All of our content will be up on Mixcloud and YouTube afterwards, so please do check that out.
Yes.
And we'll be back in 2 weeks' time on the
1st of July.
on the
We
1st
will.
of July.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Okay, well, from me, Kez.
From me, Chris.
And from me, Catherine.
Good night.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
You've been listening to the Geekly Chronicles. Content was researched and vaguely fudged together by Chris, Catherine and Kez, who are also your hosts for this evening's show. The Geekly Chronicles is an independent production. Any reference to any persons or things living or dead was probably an error. What is reality anyway? Don't take the blue pill. Live long and prosper. Wear sunscreen.
Take care of yourselves and each other.